I'm an American acupuncturist, and dang, coronavirus, right? Pretty scary. Um, this is a hot disease from a Chinese point of view. The Chinese, for thousands of years, saw illness and injuries as arising from exposure to wind and cold. The Shanghan Lun school described this very effectively, and that style of treatment is still very predominant. It's used a lot, it's very effective, but later, about 700 or 800 years ago, when the Chinese started living in big cities, they started having these different kinds of illnesses, big epidemics that would kill millions in some cases, and that did not respond to the old treatments for exposure to cold and wind. And gradually, the Chinese realized that these problems were not caused by exposure to the elements, but were caused by exposure to other people, or to bad water, or to bad food, or to bug bites. And so there was this different vector of infection. These diseases also tended to come with high fevers, and so delirium, frequently bleeding, and frequently death. So very dangerous, fast-moving illnesses. And this school of thought was called the One Bing School, which means hot injuries or hot illnesses. And it especially talks about this naturally occurring defense mechanism our bodies have. They detect heat, which is moving quickly, might kill you, and so your body mobilizes dampness. Dampness would be fat or mucus or stuff in cysts or pus, lymph, all those kind of fluids that are involved in inflammatory response. The dampness comes and covers up the heat. And so that's good. It keeps the heat from getting out and killing you, but it's bad because in some cases the heat then cooks the dampness and makes it harder and harder, more and more sticky, harder and harder to dislodge. And so then that dampness, that booger ball, causes problems of its own. Or in the current case, since COVID-19, the body's response of dampness is so extreme that people's lungs are filling up with secretions and they're drowning to death. So there are two strategies for dealing with a one being condition. The first is to try to clear that heat out somehow. There's a saying that goes along with the One Bing School: it's never too early to purge, it's never too late to sweat. And so those are the two main avenues by which you try to clear heat from a Chinese perspective. You try to get somebody to sweat, try to get somebody to go to the bathroom, or even vomit. There's some situations where you eat something poisonous, usually of a hot nature. Your body says, whoa, that's poison. You vomit, and then you don't get so sick. With One Bing conditions, the issue tends more to be that a person gets hot and dried up and they become constipated. And so then their bowels no longer function as a conduit to relieve heat. So on the one hand, you're looking to clear heat out of the body. On the other hand, you're anticipating this formation of dampness. And you expect it, you try to deal with it in a sober kind of way, because again, there are instances where it'll be helpful. You don't want to just say, no, let the fever run its course, because the fever might kill the person. But you also want to keep your eyes open for complications that can arise from damp accumulation. So there are two pieces you think about. The first is prevention, and that's where most of us are at right now. So of course we're wearing masks, we're practicing social distancing, we've closed our businesses, and we're sticking with our families and not going around to other people right now, because it's hard to know how it's spreading. We create other kind of barriers, in the hospitals with masks and goggles and gowns and gloves and whatnot. But then also, you try to strengthen yourself internally, and especially you try to strengthen your lungs. Echinacea, American ginseng are commonly found herbs that will strengthen lungs. And you also try to strengthen your spleen. Most Westerners think the Chinese are talking about the pancreas when they say the spleen, but in any event, they're talking about the primary organ of digestion. So you want to do things that are going to generally keep your digestion chugging along. So cinnamon, licorice, citrus peel, ginger, these are all commonly available ingredients that will encourage the spleen function. And then also, because this lung and spleen energy are said to come together in your chest to create zheng qi, or upright qi, which helps to guide your immune response and also helps us to stay upright in the storm-tossed seas of life. If you're bobbing along upside down sometimes and sideways sometimes, it's a lot harder than if you're bobbing along upright. So you keep trying to connect this spleen and lung qi, and so some situations where I could kind of create an analog. If you eat so much food that you can't breathe, you're not creating connection between your lung and spleen qi. So maybe keep your meals on the smaller side. And generally, you would just look for opportunities to work on lung qi. You can also sing. If you've got lingering grief, you can cry. You can do tai chi or qigong or yoga, or you can get outside and breathe some nice fresh spring air, because the weather's not the problem, it's other people that are the problem right now. For the spleen, in addition to these dietary herbs, you also want to eat comfortable, easy to digest food. So now is not a good time to do a real ambitious cleanse, or to start some exotic new cuisine because you heard it's really great for your your immune response, but you eat it and you don't like it, it's hard to digest. Now you want to eat easy to digest, tasty, familiar food at this time. You also want to work on your boundaries, and that goes along very neatly with our current social distancing schemes. That even though we don't like it, for now, my boundary ends 6 feet away from the next person, and my office door is closed, and there's a lot not to like about the current situation, but that's the way it is. We got to deal with it. The other thing, then, other than after prevention, you're thinking about, God forbid, you or somebody you love catches the virus and develops COVID-19. So the number one thing you want to do is keep their bowels regular. In general, fruit is your friend if you get this illness. Rhubarb in particular is said to have cooling and laxative properties, but in general, fruit is going to be cooling. It's going to keep your bowels moving. If you end up being a fruitarian for a week or 2 weeks, if you get sick, that'd be a totally reasonable thing to do. There's some other strategies. In a later vlog, I'm going to demonstrate gua sha for you, which is a Chinese folk medicine technique that's very useful for clearing acute heat. You can use it for chronic heat too, but in this instance for acute heat. And organization. That's the other thing you can do for your lungs to try to make yourself strong. The lungs like order. They like organization. So especially because you're trapped in your house or trapped in your office, neaten up, get things in order, get your ducks in a row. Do what you can to make your life as orderly as you're able to, and this will relieve some of your nervous tension, but it also give your lungs a useful job to do and help them to keep their qi at its maximum. Okay, that's all for this vlog. I will upload something tomorrow and the next day. Again, I'm going to demonstrate gua sha, and I'm also going to do a brief vlog for other acupuncturists, because I've heard some information circulating that surprised me, that seemed inaccurate to me. Not everybody had the same education or experience I did, and maybe I can offer some insight to some of my colleagues. That's all. Hang in there. See you on the other side.